and this is another piece about trees, but taken from the book of John, where Jesus took a blind man out and rubbed mud on his eyes, and when Jesus asked him what he saw, he said, "I see men as trees." And then Jesus blessed him and gave him his eyesight back. Once upon a time, I was a self-absorbed kid in his early 20s, riding down the back roads of Lawrence County, Alabama in the back seat of our family's four-door sedan. On either side of me were each of my brothers, lost in their own little worlds of video games and girls. My mother and my father were discussing something, but in my head it was about beauty, because it's always about beauty. And along the same party lines, my father said, perhaps it's God that passes on to us the responsibility to create beauty. And man's done okay, except when he hasn't. My mother's perspective was a bit more complex, as a woman's perspective usually is. And she said, all we do are pale imitations to the Creator's great creation, and that is what is beautiful. Because beauty is in being, and the grass is always green as long as there is some. My mother had an affinity on the verge of obsession with the trees. Not just any trees, you see, but trees that had been struck by lightning as though God himself had chosen them. And on this particular day, we pulled to the side of the road, and she waited out in a strange baptismal ceremony in the knee-high grass just to touch one. As she got close to it, she turned to me and said, "This one hasn't been struck by lightning once, but twice, but I didn't see it." As I didn't see her as a tree that had been twice struck by lightning, having lost a child at 16 and another at 20. I was the first fruit of her labor, and she was talking to me, but I didn't hear because all I saw was a tree. An oak that bent like a willow and swayed in ways that oaks do not sway. Its branches that once reached to the sky now swept the ground like a beggar's arms, keeping balance. As he's grown drunk on his own misery, asking some God, "Why have you forsaken me?" Beautiful, she said, but I didn't see it. And life went on until it didn't. And my mother was filled with a strange and mysterious cancer, and I watched her petals fall. I watched her shine as she withered, knowing how to reach for water, but knowing that she could no longer. And on one March 28th, the air grew electric. It grew energized, charged, and polarized, and as the heavens opened up to accept her offering, I was struck by lightning. Right in the back of the neck, rendering me unable to make eye contact, and worse, unable to see the sky. My limbs, which once reached high, now reeled in pain into fists, and I went numb from my shoulders and my hips. The thunderclap left me deaf to laughter and prayer, and the rains came, and the healing process began. But the healing process isn't easy, because by definition, it's someone resolving their pain. The sap poured out of the wound in the form of art and song and the spoken word, in midnight conversations when I couldn't ease my nerves, in long drunken fights and short fist fights. Then the woody flesh grew around the singed hole, and the knot grew bark. And my life went on until it didn't. And my brother's head was filled with a strange and mysterious ache, and I knew what was coming. And on a January 8th, the air grew electric. It was energized, charged, and polarized, and as the heavens opened up to accept his offering, I was struck by lightning, this time at the root, a coup de grace as I fell, the thunderclap deafening me to tears of prayer, and I did not ask God, "Why have you forsaken me?" And I caught my balance there. I waited for the carpenters, but they did not fall. But I did not fall on them or theirs, so they didn't care. And the rain came, and with it, the healing process began. But the healing process isn't a pretty thing, because by definition it's someone resolving their pain, and I fed myself on the bitterness of the earth, and I grew drunk on my misery, and I swayed in ways that oaks do not sway. And in the rain I found sleep for the first time in years. And I was falling as I'd always been falling, but in the dream I was being baptized, and I could see her wading through the knee-high grass as she was walking towards me, as she'd always been, and she was coming to touch me.